The door to the grand hall slammed shut in our faces as the venue owner, Mr. Hargrove, sneered. "I'm sorry, ladies, but we can't host this kind of event. It's against our values." Veronica gripped my hand so tightly her nails dug into my palm, her eyes filling with tears while the string quartet inside kept playing like nothing had changed, and I stood frozen on the marble steps of the Chicago Lakeside Pavilion with 600 guests already seated and our dream of saying, "I do" exactly 7 minutes away from collapsing into nothing. My heart hammered against my ribs, not from heartbreak alone but from the secret I had buried for 8 years. Every brick, every chandelier, every inch of this lakeside tower belonged to me, Alina Voss, through a holding company no one, not my family, not Veronica, not even Hargrove, knew about. The cancellation wasn't random. I could already smell my mother's hand in it, her whispered phone calls to protect the family name finally paying off. Veronica whispered, "Alina, what are we going to tell everyone?" And I forced a smile that felt like broken glass while inside I calculated exactly how much power I was about to unleash. Guests started murmuring in the lobby, phones lighting up as the news spread faster than the caterers could clear the tables. My younger brother, Lucas, stood near the entrance in his rented tux, avoiding my eyes. And I knew right then he had been the messenger. The betrayal tasted metallic on my tongue. Veronica's mother, Diane, rushed over, her face pale under the crystal chandeliers, clutching a tissue like a lifeline. "This can't be legal," she kept repeating, but legality had nothing to do with it. Prejudice wore a suit and quoted contract clauses about moral standards that Hargrove had conveniently discovered at the 11th hour. I squeezed Veronica's hand back, feeling the engagement ring we had picked together in a tiny Wicker Park shop 2 years ago, and I made a silent promise that this humiliation would not be the end of our story. The clock on the wall ticked past the scheduled start time, and the first wave of pitying looks hit us like cold lake wind. I had spent my entire adult life building an empire in real estate while pretending to be the dutiful daughter who dated nice boys for family dinners. Veronica had given up her safe corporate job to pursue photography because she believed in believed Chicago could be kind to 2 women who loved each other openly. Now that belief lay shattered on the marble floor, and I felt the weight of every sacrifice we had made crashing down. My mother's voice echoed in my head from last week's frantic call. "Think of your father's heart, Alina. This wedding will kill him." I had hung up then, but the guilt had lingered like smoke. Hargrove crossed his arms, his cheap cologne clashing with the fresh floral arrangements we had paid for, and he repeated, "We have the right to refuse service," as if that excused destroying the happiest day of our lives. Veronica's shoulders shook, and I pulled her close, inhaling the vanilla scent of her hair while my mind raced through the legal loopholes I had memorized when I bought this building as a silent investment right after grad school. No one knew because I had learned early that visibility was danger in my family's world. The guests began filtering out, some offering awkward hugs, others whispering behind programs printed with our intertwined initials. I caught Lucas slipping toward the side exit, and decided the time for silence was over. "Stay right here," I told Veronica, kissing her forehead with a steadiness I didn't feel. "I'm fixing this." She looked at me like I had lost my mind, but I was already walking toward Hargrove with the kind of calm that comes right before a storm breaks. My phone buzzed in my clutch, my mother calling again, and I silenced it without looking. The main conflict wasn't just a cancelled wedding anymore. It was the collision of every secret I had kept to protect the woman I loved, and the family that had never truly accepted her. Veronica followed me slowly, her white dress trailing like a flag of surrender, and I realized in that moment that if I used the power I held, nothing between us would ever be the same again. The lake wind whipped through the open doors, carrying the scent of rain that matched the storm building inside me. Hargrove's office smelled of stale coffee and desperation as I pushed the door open without knocking. Veronica right behind me like a shadow I refused to let fade. "You're making a mistake," I said quietly, the words carrying more weight than any shout could. He laughed at first, leaning back in his leather chair with the confidence of a man who thought he still controlled the narrative, but when I slid the ownership papers across his desk, documents I had printed from my secure cloud that morning, he went pale. "This building has been mine since 2018, I told him, watching the realization sink in that his 10-year lease was now a ticking bomb in my hands. Veronica gasped softly beside me, her hand flying to her mouth, because even she had never known. I had hidden the purchase behind layers of LLCs to keep my family from sniffing out my success and using it against me. Hargrove stammered, "Ms. Voss, we can renegotiate." But the damage was already done. I didn't want renegotiation. I wanted accountability. Yet the second I said the words out loud, doubt crept in like fog off the lake. Was this justice or just another form of control I had sworn never to wield the way my parents had wielded shame against me? Veronica pulled me aside in the hallway, while Hargrove scrambled for his lawyer on the phone. "Alina, you can't destroy his business over one day," she whispered, her voice cracking with the same moral weight that had always made her the better half of us. "We'll find another venue. I don't want our wedding built on someone else's ruin." Her eyes searched mine for the woman she had fallen in love with in our sophomore year at Northwestern. The quiet finance major who had quietly funded her first camera and never asked for credit. I wanted to agree, to be the bigger person, but the image of my mother's satisfied smirk when she heard the news kept flashing behind my eyelids. Lucas had admitted everything in a rushed text while I stood there. Mom had offered Hargrove double the cancellation fee if he cited religious incompatibility, all to stop the embarrassment before it hit the extended family group chat. The betrayal burned hotter than the canceled vows. We stepped outside to the terrace overlooking Lake Michigan, the city skyline mocking us with its indifferent beauty, and Veronica's mother Diane joined us, her supportive presence the only anchor in the chaos. "You two have already fought so much," she said gently, but I could see the worry lines deepening around her eyes. She knew how fragile Veronica's confidence had become after years of my family's subtle digs at every holiday dinner. Inside, the guests who hadn't left were milling around the lobby like lost souls, and I felt the first cracks in my resolve. Using my ownership meant exposing 8 years of lies to my parents, who still believed I was the obedient daughter saving for a proper future. Not using it meant letting prejudice win. Letting Veronica's tears today become the memory she carried forever. The moral line blurred until I couldn't see it clearly anymore. My phone rang again, my father this time, and I answered on speaker without thinking. "Alina, come home now. This circus ends today," he demanded in the same tone he used when I came out at 19, and he had threatened to cut me off. Veronica squeezed my arm, reminding me silently that home wasn't a place anymore. It was the woman standing beside me in a dress we had altered 3 times because nothing felt perfect enough for us. I hung up without a word, the silence heavier than any argument. Hargrove emerged, sweating now, offering a desperate compromise. The hall for half price if we signed an NDA. The insult landed like a slap. Veronica turned to me, her voice steady despite the tears. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. But promise me we won't become the monsters they already think we are." That promise felt impossible to keep while the clock kept ticking, and the caterers started packing up our untouched 5-course meal. The internal war raged louder than the wind off the lake. Every choice carrying a price tag measured in lost family, lost trust, or lost dignity. I looked at Veronica's face, still the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, and realized the real conflict wasn't Hargrove or my mother. It was the version of myself I had hidden to survive and the woman I wanted to become for the person I loved more than any building. The confrontation spilled onto the terrace as my mother arrived uninvited, her designer coat flapping like a battle flag against the gathering clouds. "Alina, enough of this nonsense," she hissed, ignoring Veronica completely as if she were invisible. "Your father is having chest pains because of your selfishness. Cancel this foolishness and come home where you belong." Veronica stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. "Mrs. Voss, this is our home together. We've planned this for 2 years." My mother's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "Planned? You mean lied? Lucas told us everything, and we protected you the only way we knew how." The admission hung in the air like smoke, confirming what I had suspected. My own brother had sold us out for the family's approval. Rage and grief tangled in my chest until I could barely breathe. Diane placed a protective arm around Veronica, her quiet strength the counterweight to my mother's venom. Guests who had lingered began recording on their phones, turning our private hell into public spectacle, and I felt the social prejudice I had fought my whole life closing in like the lake fog. I pulled out my phone and forwarded the ownership documents to Hargrove's lawyer with one tap. adding a note that the lease would be terminated in 30 days unless the ceremony proceeded immediately. It was done. Veronica's eyes widened in betrayal. Alina, we talked about this. I know, I whispered. But I can't let them win. The argument that followed was the first real fracture between us. She accused me of choosing power over love. I accused her of choosing peace at the cost of self-respect. Hargrove, cornered, finally relented and reopened the hall, but the magic was gone. The string quartet resumed with shaky notes while we stood at the altar, vows we had written together now feeling tainted. I spoke first, my voice steady despite the storm. Veronica, I choose you every single day, even when the world tries to tear us apart. She hesitated, tears streaming, then answered with words that carried the weight of every sacrifice. I choose us, Alina, but I need you to choose kindness too. The kiss that sealed our union tasted of salt and relief, yet underneath it lingered the doubt I had planted. My mother stormed out before the recessional, Lucas trailing like a ghost, and I felt the family ties snap one by one. At the reception that somehow still happened, toasts turned into awkward silences when relatives realized the power shift. Veronica danced with me under the crystal lights, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. We won today, she murmured. But at what cost? I had no answer. Only the growing awareness that wielding my hidden empire had saved the day, and possibly cost me the woman I had fought to protect. The night ended with us alone on the terrace again, the city lights reflecting on the lake like scattered diamonds. Veronica leaned into me, exhausted. I love you, Alina Voss, secret real estate mogul and all. But the laughter in her voice was forced, and I knew the real awakening was just beginning, for both of us. The morning after the wedding, the Chicago Tribune ran a small piece about dramatic last-minute drama at the Lakeside Pavilion, and social media exploded with hashtags that painted us as either heroes or villains. Veronica scrolled through the comments in our honeymoon suite, her face paling at the ones calling me a rich bully for leveraging ownership. They don't know what we went through, she said softly, but the seed of doubt had already taken root in her. I tried to reassure her with breakfast in bed and promises of a real honeymoon in Maui, yet every notification on my phone from my family's lawyer reminded me the war wasn't over. My father had filed a petition to contest my business holdings, claiming I had used family money to buy the building. Another lie born of desperation. Lucas texted an apology that felt hollow. I thought I was helping you avoid regret. The betrayal cut deeper than the cancellation itself. Veronica's photography studio called with a sudden flood of bookings from supporters, but also hate mail that made her lock the doors early. We argued again in the kitchen of our Lincoln Park apartment, the one we had bought together with my secret profits. You turned our love into a power play, she said, voice breaking. I turned prejudice into consequences. I shot back, but the words tasted wrong even as I said them. Diane tried mediating over coffee, reminding us both that families like mine had driven countless couples apart before. Still, the internal conflict raged. Was I the strong woman Veronica had fallen for? Or had I become the controlling force I hated in my parents? We flew to Maui anyway, the ocean air supposed to heal us, but the beach walks turned into tense silences. Veronica captured sunsets with her camera while I stared at my phone, negotiating lease terms with Hargrove's desperate team. One night under the stars she finally broke. I married you, not your empire. If you evict them, we're no better than the people who cancelled us. Her words landed like waves against the shore, eroding the certainty I had clung to. I spent the next day alone on the sand replaying every choice. The day I bought the building as insurance against a homophobic world. The night I proposed to Veronica in the same venue's garden before I owned it. The moment my mother first called Veronica, that girl. The awakening came slowly, like dawn creeping over the volcano. Love wasn't about winning. It was about refusing to let hate shape our decisions. I called my lawyer from the beach and halted the eviction proceedings, choosing forgiveness over destruction. Veronica found me at sunset, and when I told her, the relief in her eyes was worth every lost dollar. Thank you, she whispered, and for the first time since the cancellation, our kiss felt pure again. Back in Chicago, the social storm continued, but we faced it together. My family's silence a heavy price, yet one we paid willingly. The moral dilemma had forced me to see that true strength wasn't hidden ownership. It was the courage to let go of revenge when it threatened the only thing that mattered. Weeks turned into months, and the fallout settled like dust after a storm. My mother sent a single text on my birthday. "We miss you, but we can't condone this life." The words stung less than they once would have because Veronica and I had started rebuilding. Quietly, deliberately. She launched an exhibit called Unbroken Vows. Photos of queer couples who had faced similar prejudice, and the gallery opening drew supporters who reminded us we weren't alone. I stepped back from aggressive real estate deals, focusing instead on funding community centers for LGBTQ youth, turning my empire into something that healed instead of hurt. Hargrove's lease renewal came up, and I approved it with new clauses protecting future same-sex events. A quiet victory that cost me nothing but pride. Lucas reached out eventually, awkward coffee meetings revealing his own regrets about choosing family loyalty over truth. "I was scared too," he admitted, and for the first time I saw the boy who had grown up under the same pressure I had. Veronica watched these reconciliations with cautious hope, her hand always finding mine in public now without hesitation. Yet the internal scars remained. Nights when she woke from dreams of the slammed door, whispering, "Promise me we'll never let them divide us again." I promised, but the weight of every decision still pressed on my chest. Diane became our strongest ally, hosting family dinners where laughter slowly replaced the tension. One evening, Veronica pulled me aside in the kitchen. "I was wrong to judge you so harshly that day. You fought for us when I was ready to run." Her forgiveness felt like the final piece clicking into place, yet it also highlighted the cost we had both paid. Lost relatives, public scrutiny, the quiet fear that power once tasted could corrupt again. We renewed our private vows on our first anniversary at a small lakeside spot far from the pavilion, just us and Diane, the words simpler this time. "I choose us every day without weapons." The ceremony ended with the same lake wind, but now it carried peace instead of panic. Social media had moved on to newer scandals, leaving us to live our lives in the quiet we had earned. My father's health stabilized, though he never reached out. The silence was its own kind of mourning. I sold a minority stake in the building, not to punish anyone, but to free myself from the secret that had once defined me. Veronica captured the moment in a photo we framed above our bed. Two women walking away from the tower, hands linked, faces turned toward the future. The drama had reshaped us both, forcing confrontations we never wanted and sacrifices we hadn't anticipated. Through it all, the love that had survived felt stronger, tempered by fire and choice. The final chapter of our story unfolded not in grand gestures but in ordinary mornings. Coffee together, shared laughter over burned toast, the quiet decision to adopt a rescue dog we named Lake. Veronica's photography career flourished with commissions from organizations fighting the very prejudice we had endured, while I mentored young queer entrepreneurs, passing on lessons about power used wisely. My family remained distant, a wound that never fully closed. Yet we honored their absence by building a chosen family around us. One crisp autumn day, we returned to the lakeside pavilion as guests for another wedding, this time a straight couple's, but under the new inclusive policies I had quietly enforced. Hargrove shook our hands with genuine respect now, the past a bridge we had chosen not to burn completely. Veronica leaned into me during the ceremony, whispering, "Look how far we've come." I squeezed her hand, feeling the same ring from that chaotic day, and realized the real victory wasn't the cancelled wedding or the revealed ownership. It was the daily choice to love louder than the hate. The social prejudices still existed, side glances at restaurants, occasional online trolls, but they no longer defined us. We had awakened to a truth bigger than any building or family legacy. Love demands courage, not conquest. As we walked out into the Chicago evening, the city lights reflecting on the lake like stars fallen to earth, Veronica turned to me with the smile that had first captured my heart. "Ready for whatever comes next?" she asked. I kissed her right there on the steps where everything had nearly ended, answering without words. Our story wasn't perfect, and the moral lines we had walked remained blurry in memory. But we had chosen each other through betrayal, pressure, and doubt. In the end, was it right for me to reveal my hidden ownership and force the venue to honor our day? Or should I have simply walked away to preserve our love without any stain of power? The question lingers for anyone who has ever stood at the edge of justice and mercy, wondering which path truly sets you free.